Welcome to this episode of the Church of Philadelphia. We're going to dig and dive very intensely into this church. We're so excited to share with you this specific church because it has encouraged our hearts a lot. And as you know, we're going to read about the historical context of the church. We're going to learn about how Jesus presented himself to this church and also what he said about them, how he encouraged them, and so we can gain some more practical application for our lives and for the body. Remember that every church, every letter is written for the whole body of Christ. It's for our growth, and it's for you to share it with other people so that you can let the Lord examine your heart through every letter. So let's go and let's learn about the Church of Philadelphia. And the primary message to this church was faithfulness to Jesus now results in eternal reward. I'm going to repeat that phrase. Faithfulness to Jesus now, so in this time, faithfulness to Jesus will have a result in eternity. There will be eternal honor as we are faithful to the Lord now. So let's read. We're going to read Revelation chapter 4, and it's in verses 7 through 12.
Verse 7, and to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write, the words of the Holy One, the true One, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my words and have not denied my name.
So yes, Jesus here is presenting himself in a way that emphasizes his care for his people. And he is saying, I am the Holy One. So he's saying, this is my character. I am holy. He's saying he is true.
He's the truth, yeah.
And he's saying, I have the key of David. So he's presenting himself, first of all, holy. Like, let's talk about the holiness of God. God is holy. And the word holy means set apart.
Transcendent.
Transcendent. There's no one like him. He is holy. And this is the attribute that really impacts me a lot and it impacts us. Because if you think of holy in heaven as the elders, as the angels, as everything that's happening around the throne is happening, there's an answer. There's a song that is being sang, and that's holy, holy, holy.
Yeah, when we get to chapter 4, we're going to touch a lot on how the elders, the living creatures are singing holy and why it is so important for us to understand that aspect of Jesus.
Yeah, so the attribute as him as holy is presenting here. He's saying, I am holy. He's saying, I am true. So, and then he says, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts. So when he says he who is true, means that he is reliable to keep what he says. If Jesus says something, we can be assured that he is going to fulfill it. He is trustworthy. He fulfills his promises.
And we need to understand to the group of people that he's revealing himself in this way. And as we go through the letter, we'll see that this church is a church that has no correction. But at the same time, they were struggling with people. We will talk about that in a minute, who were making things hard for the believers. So he's coming to a group of people who are experiencing some kind of persecution and troubles. And he's saying, I am holy. I am true. Everything that I have promised you, I will fulfill it because my promises are yes and amen for you. And then he moves on and he says that he's the one who has the key of David.
And so when he says, I have the key of David, remember that we're talking about Jesus, the son of David, coming from the lineage of David. And this means that he has authority over everything. Remember, he's the preeminent one. He is the supremacy. He has the supreme authority. So when you have a key, it means you have entrance into something. You have a key to a door, for example, and you have the authority to open that door in your house, for example.
We even see in Isaiah chapter 22, verse 22, that says, "The key of the house of David I will lay on his shoulder. So he shall open, and no one shall shut. And he shall shut, and no one shall open." It's a prophetic promise of the Son of David, which is Jesus. And Jesus is revealing himself to the Church of Philadelphia as the one who has the key of David, who can open and shut whatever he wants. So, yeah.
So when it says he opens and no one shuts, it's talking about that Jesus opens door that no man or demon can shut. Jesus alone has the keys of the kingdom. He has the authority to open the doors, and nobody can shut them. Like whatever he purposes in his mind, that is the ultimate authority. And then it says, he who shuts and no one opens. So when God shuts a door, again, no one can open it. And that's what it means that he has the key, meaning that he has the key to open and to shut the doors. Just like if you read when Paul went to Asia and he wanted to go and preach, he was forbidden by the Spirit. He sought to preach in Asia, but he was forbidden by the Spirit of God to go there. So again, we see a situation here where God has the keys. He's the one that has the key of David. So he has the ultimate authority over all.
And when we get to verse 9, at least in this version says, "Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews, but they're not, but lie." So who is this synagogue of Satan, and why are we talking about doors being open and being shut? The problem is that the believers in the Church of Philadelphia, they were having problems with this group of people, the ones from the synagogue of Satan, which, by the way, the second time that we have this reference in the letters to the 7 churches.
Yeah, I remember that we had it previously in the letter to the church of
Smyrna.
And these people were physically Jews, but they were not actually practicing it. So all that they wanted to do was to persecute the Christians. They wanted to persecute those who were the followers of Jesus.
And with this, we're not saying that it was all the Jews. It was a specific group of people for a specific region or area, which in this case is the Church of Philadelphia. Yeah. So they were closing doors for them. They were pretty much getting them, they were trying to kick them out of the synagogues, kick them out of any place where they could practice their faith. So they were being persecuted by this group of false Jews.
They were pagans. So they were trying to just kill those who were following Christianity. And
they were also trying to force them to practice some of the law that they were used to practice, like being circumcised or live under the law of Moses, and trying to Judaize all the beliefs of the new Christians. So it was very, very hard for them. So they had no place to go. But now we see Jesus introducing himself as the one, "I have the key of David. Your doors have been shut, but I'm coming here to open them because I have the key." Also, I have the key to shut them down.
So let's go to verse 8, and it says, "I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name." So here, after Jesus is presenting himself as the one who has the key of David, as the one who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens, he says, "I know your works. I know what you're doing. Behold, I am opening a door for you." And so Jesus opens many doors. And we're going to talk a little bit about some doors that are opened, and we're going to give you some biblical context. For example, Jesus opens doors of ministry to us in this age, like Paul prays in Colossians 4:3, praying for us that God would open to us a door for the word to speak. So when God opens the door for us to speak in a nation, or closes the door maybe also we need to understand that it's him who does that. We don't open the door. God is the one that opens doors for us. And again, also when Peter and Paul, Jesus opens the prison doors just like he did for them. Also in Revelation 20 verses 1-3, Jesus will open the bottomless pit to shut Satan in prison.
He's the only one who can do it.
For the 1,000 years. Also it says in Revelation 1:18 that he's the one that has the keys over Hades and of death. So he has the keys over the demonic realm and the eternal judgment. Jesus has great authority to open the doors and to shut the doors. So we see here that when he's presenting himself as the one who has the key of David, he's saying, I have the authority. I want you to look at me as the one with authority.
And I love that he's introducing himself like that to a group of people who are struggling, who are being oppressed, who are getting
Shunned.
doors shut on them, shunned because of their belief, because of their faith.
And then let's go back again to the first part of verse 8 where it says, I know your works. He's saying, okay, first of all, I'm the Holy One. Then I'm the one who's the true. I'm the one who has the keys of David. And then he says, I know your works. I know that you have kept my word. You have been faithful. You have persevered. So now we are going to see the affirmation for their faithfulness. And I want to mention this. Jesus gave no correction for this church. Like he just affirmed them. He said, you are being faithful. Even in the midst of you being shunned, even in the midst of you being persecuted.
Which is interesting because the church that we were studying in the session before, they had good reputation. They had a great name. But God says, you are dead. Now, these ones are being shunned. They're in trouble. They're struggling. But he says, I know your works. You have kept my word.
So even in the face of obstacles and in the face of persecution, his leadership was good for them. Like they were following the leadership of the Lord, and they were persevering in their assignment in preaching the gospel, even when they were encountering walls of a blockade against them. And so then it continues to say in verse 9, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and they are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. So remember the synagogue of Satan, where we were explaining before that this was the people that were Jews. They pretended to be practicing Judaism, but they were actually false. They just wanted to persecute those who were preaching the gospel. They were liars. And so he's saying, I'm going to basically, in our language saying, I'm going to prove, before their eyes, I'm going to make them see that you are actually, that what you're saying is true. It's not that they're going to come and worship before them as they were idols gods or idols. No, it's saying they were acknowledged that you are speaking the truth, that what you're saying, it's the truth. And so and it's giving a place of honor.
Just want to go back a little bit. In verse 8 says that I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my words and have not denied my name.
Yeah.
So this group of people, the synagogue of Satan, like you were saying, they'll have to acknowledge that even though they seem to be so weak, they were taking in consideration the truth. Like it says, I know that you have little power, yet you have kept my words and have not denied my name. And then what verse 9 is saying is that they will have to bow down, like you were saying, not to worship, but to acknowledge that they were right.
The Amplified Version says, because you have guarded and kept my word of patient endurance, have held fast the lesson of my patience with the expectant endurance that I give you, I also will keep you safe from the hour of trial testing, which is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell upon the earth. So I just love the word patient endurance or perseverance. I am really in awe of this group of people of this church because they were being persecuted. And in persecution, you have two two options. You can either draw back from the Lord and say, I don't want this anymore because it's too much persecution, it's too hard. Or you can choose to remain and be patient and wait on the Lord and take the sufferings of Christ, just like he persevered and how he was long suffering and continued. And because of obedience to the Father, you can take that route. And they took that route. They obeyed Jesus. They continued and persevered. And that's why they are being affirmed. And many times, and I think it's not that the persecution, that we should pray, oh, I want to be persecuted. I want to be persecuted. It's not like that. But persecution is good to prune us and to help us persevere. James 1:12 says, "Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him." And you're going to see later on in the letter that we're going to talk about a crown. And perseverance under trial is what they're experiencing. They're experiencing persecution from the synagogue of Satan, from this so-called Jews, and they're persevering. So the Lord is saying to them, you're doing good. I know your works, and I will keep you from the hour of trial.
This verse that we're talking, I want to also highlight something important, because when we started our study or this online course on the book of Revelation, we said that there's different perspectives or different views about the tribulation, if it happens before, if the church stays for the tribulation, does the church disappears before the tribulation, known as rapture. So we said that we were going to take the idea or the perspective that the church will endure persecution, and the ones who pretty much teach about that the church is going to be raptured and not experience tribulation, one of the main verses that they use to explain it is specifically Revelation 3:10, because they say that he will keep you from the hour of trial, meaning that he's going to take the church out of the earth so they don't experience tribulation. But this verse is not saying that he will just take the church and the church will disappear. It's very clear when it says, I will keep you. Another version says, I will preserve you. That means that during the tribulation, during hardships, during hard times, he will protect his church. His mercy is going to be shown over that church as he's casting judgments over the earth and the empire of the Antichrist. He will take care of the church. He will keep the church. He will preserve the church. And if you want to read an example, Exodus chapter 8, verse 22 says, on that day, I will deal differently with the land of Goshen, where my people live. No swarm or flies will be there, so that you will know that I, the Lord, am in this land. And if you read Exodus 9:26, you see the same principle, that hail was pouring all over Egypt except in Goshen. Now, Goshen was the place where the Israelites lived. That's the place where they were enslaved. And as all the plagues with Moses were happening over the land of Egypt, they were being preserved from those plagues. If you go and see a map, you'll see that Goshen it's in the border closer to the promised land.
You're going to see a map right now on screen,
but
as we're explaining this.
But it's part of Egypt. So if the plagues were happening all over Egypt, they were supposed to happen in Goshen as well. But he said it specifically in Exodus 8:22, 9:26, that he was protecting that specific area because his people, the Israelites, were living in there. So this principle, you can research on it and just make some Google research and put Goshen principle, and you see how he protects them. He keeps them. And that's exactly what's going to happen. This is what's happening here in the Church of Philadelphia.
And now it says in verse 11, I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. So he's saying, I am coming soon in the midst of all this persecution, in the midst of what he's saying about, I'm going to preserve you, persevere.
This is an exhortation.
This is an exhortation, to
with
respond.
a warning.
Yeah, an exhortation. So he's saying, hold fast what you have. And so that is the perseverance that they have.
It's very similar to instruction to the church that we were studying before. It's an instruction to keep the things, the good things that you're doing. Do not get discouraged.
2 John chapter 1 verse 8 says, watch yourselves so that you do not lose what we have worked for, but that you may be fully rewarded. So this is speaking in the context of being aware of deceivers. So he's saying, watch out that you do not lose that obedience, that you do not lose the same measure of obedience that you have, just because there's people in that group trying to get them back to the law.
Or even confuse them.
So beware. He's saying beware, like watch out, keep watch.
And the reason is in verse 11, so that no one may seize your crown. No one sees your reward. Now let's keep reading verse 12. We will see that there's a couple of promises for the ones who overcome. It says, verse 12, to the one who conquers, I will make him, here's the first reward, a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. And I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my own name, own new name. So we see here the first promise, I will make him a pillar in my temple. This speaks of those who will receive a place of honor, of authority in Jesus' millennial kingdom. They will have a special place where they will rule with him. There are pillars functioning to beautify the building, because the pillars were for the beauty of the building.
And remember that pillars are those things that sustain, or in a building, those things that bear the weight of something. And in the Bible, in Galatians 2 verse 9, it says, when James, Cephas, Peter, and John, who seemed to be pillars. So they're being affirmed as pillars, as those that are standing strong, those that are standing, that are steadfast, those that are holding maybe the weight of carrying, the truth of the gospel. So, Peter, John, and James.
Even in the ancient world, when someone did something very important in their city, whenever they die, they will build a pillar to remember that person, in honor to that person. And they will write their names in the temples. So for them, it made a lot of sense. Because for our culture, if someone says, I'm going to make a pillar with your name, it might not feel as important as it did for them in this time.
There were also 60 pillars in the tabernacle of Moses. You can find that in Exodus 27:10. Solomon also had names written on the 2 large bronze pillars in the porch of the temple. So you can just research, and there's going to be some biblical reference on the screen.
The second promise that we see here in verse 12 says, never shall he go out of it. This means that Jesus is promising them that they will not be removed from their place of honor. They are like pillars that represents honor, and they're going to be there for forever.
And then it continues to say, I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven. I will write on him my new name. So to have the name of God on us means, first of all, that we belong to him, that we are recipients of his desire, authority, partnership, and revelation of his heart and beauty. And it means we belong to him. He's going to write his name on us. God has promised to write his word on our heart and our minds. That's what the ministry of the Spirit is. The ministry of the Holy Spirit is that on the day of Pentecost, he wrote the tablets were not written in tablets of stone, but was going to be written in our minds and in our hearts. And so to have that is just the most amazing privilege for us to have his name in us. And it says the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven. And I will write on him my new name. This is speaking about eternity. It's speaking about the New Jerusalem, about eternity. When that happens, that's going to be in us. We're going to live with him forever. So to have this promise, when, to the faithful ones, to the ones that are persevering through the tribulation, the ones that are being persecuted, we can look to this promise and be hopeful and have hope in our hearts, knowing that this is temporary, yet we're going to be with him forever.
And it's amazing that to the group of people who are being persecuted, who are like shunned and have no sense of ownership of anything, or they don't belong to any place, we see Jesus saying, I will write my name on you, the New Jerusalem, you are mine. So they got the sense of I belong to him. I have no physical place, I can't practice my faith, and he's like, I'm writing my name on you. And then the letter ends as all the letters, and he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Yeah, so just remember that as we're reading every church, we need to let the letter impact our hearts. Remember that all these churches are a representation of the church right now. Like, we want you to read this letter not thinking, oh, this was for that church, but not for me. No, I want you to read it and let the Lord bring light to your heart as you're reading Philadelphia. And if the Lord is saying to you, yes, you're faithful, you have not denied my name, you are persevering through trial, then take this in your heart and just continue and respond to the exhortation that Jesus is giving this church. Because again, I see this church as, if you focus, let's say you focus on the last part, and let's focus on the last part. I see that the Lord is telling them, I am worth it, I am worth that you are being persecuted for my name. I am worth it because you're going to be with me forever. You're going to be with me in the New Jerusalem. So that is worth it. To be with him for eternity, even though we experience trials and tribulations, even though we might be having some, trials, the Lord promised that in this world there will be tribulation, but that we would be a good cheer because he overcame the world. So with that in mind, we can have courage to stand and to persevere and to continue to be faithful to the Lord in the midst of the times that we're living right now.